It's raining outside. I want to start reading you guys the Bible, and my friend has a gift for me. She's gonna get me a Bible, so I'm really excited about that. I stumbled upon, like, where I'm sitting right now. If I look to my left, the bookshelf is all about religion and stuff like that. So I picked up a book and I thought it would be so cool. I think it's about geography. The Macmillan Atlas History of Christianity by Franklin H. Little. I'm so excited to read it. Let's start. Atlas History of Christianity. I just wanna take a minute to admire and then on the back it has this. It says, "To Harriet, Proverbs 31:10. Let's look up that verse. It says, let me see, I want to make sure I have the whole verse. It says, "The heart of her husband doth safely trust in her, so that he shall have no need of spoil. She will do him good and not evil all the days of her life." How beautiful. So I'm assuming he's dedicating this to his wife. Okay. Okay, let's start with the foreword. The table of contents. It says, table of contents. Early Christianity in its setting. Christian history does not begin with a cosmological myth, neither does it begin with the creation of man. It begins, like Jewish history, with a specific and unique event in human time and space. This formative event, remembered and reenacted by men of faith across centuries, is related in the first book of the Pentateuch, Genesis 12:1-25, 10. According to the story, a man, Abram, was called out of his natural life of idolatry and polytheism into worship and service of God. The new relationship is described They could claim no preeminence in wealth, military equipment, political hegemony. As the first glance at map, I immediately suggest they become a small people on a land bridge across which, throughout recorded time, the surge and ebb of mightier empires would move. Their single claim to a place in human affairs was based upon a covenant community's relationship to the God whom they understood to be the author and judge of history. The early Christians also understood themselves to have been called out of prehistory into history as fellow heirs of the same promises declared through apostles and prophets to the Jews. It was the mysterious work of Christ to have grafted them into an older tree of history, to have built their house upon a foundation already laid. Ephesians 2:19-20. Ephesians 3:5-6. Indeed, the truth itself had been known and proclaimed in Israel before the earthy ministry of Jesus of Nazareth. Later then, most of the Christians were Gentiles. The imagery of the covenant which opened the door into history was still retained. This is from 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 9-10. Ye are a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a peculiar people, that ye should shew forth the praises of him who hath called you out of darkness into his marvelous light, which in times past were not a people, but are now the people of God. And once again, that is 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 9-10. Once the historical self-understandings of the Jewish people and the Christian church had been identified, and with the gradual waning of the 19th century misunderstanding of scholarly objectivity and indifference to truth claims, such effort is again respectable. Two continuing unresolved problems can be stated. First, for Christians who were born Jews, practically all of the first generation of Christian believers, how was the personal event of Christian conversion to be related to the root experiences and epoch events of the Israelite history? The self-understanding of the Gentile believers who now had access to these events was less complicated. Although from Marcion of Sinope to the Douche Christen in the Third Reich, there have been numbers of the Gentile baptized who under pressure and temptation took flight from history into the non-being of their pre-conventional existence. Under pressure and temptation took flight from history into the non-being of their pre-conventional existence. Second, how is the everlasting covenant which the Christian church professed for many centuries and with disparately tragic results in the 20th century, much of the church's teachings has sadly waffled this issue. The Apostle Paul, who loved the people of his birth and education, wrestled valiantly with the problem. Romans 9-11, affirming to Gentile follow believers their share in the promises, and at the same time professing that in the end all Israel shall be saved. Romans 11:26. I love that. In our own time, men like Franz Rosenzweig and Martin Buber have struggled to explicate the interaction by reference to two covenants. So, the covenants are the promises in the Bible, the promises of God. Because of the importance of this interaction between the Jewish people and the Christian church in both negative and positive aspects, this atlas history of Christianity will from time to time graphically represent developments of import to both Jews and Christians as well as their impact on each other. unless each position is stated in a way acceptable to its adherents. B. No answers can be given unless the right questions are asked, even in the laboratory. Truth claims are aimed at specific persons facing specific choices at specific times, not at armchair philosophers or angels. Events, epoch-making, formative, archetypical, unique, to which the Christians laid claim in the history and world of the Jews were many. They remembered them, reenacted them, made them a central part of the oral tradition passed from generation to generation. They are still embedded in the creeds and liturgies. Until the fashionable flight from history in the modern period, they were part of that wisdom learned in childhood on which a person's mind and soul are nurtured for the rest of his life. A minimal list of such events, identified graphically in maps 1, 2, 3, 4, must include these. The covenant of Abraham, Genesis 17, 4 through 8. The Exodus is Exodus chapter 14, verse 19 through 31. The giving of the commandments, Exodus chapter 20, 1 through 17. The dedication of Solomon's temple, 1 Kings 8:21, 61. Exile and return, Psalm 137, Isaiah 44:28, Nehemiah. To these the Christian church has added several: the birth of a Savior Messiah, his recognition, the Last Supper, his death and resurrection, Pentecost, and the birth of the Savior is Messiah. The birth of the Savior is Matthew chapter 1 verse 18 and chapter 2. This goes from all the way from Matthew chapter 1 to chapter 2. His recognition is in Malachi 8:27. The Last Supper is in Matthew 20 verse 20 through 28. His death and resurrection is in Malachi 15:16 through 39. The Pentecost is Acts 2:1. In the developing lines of Jewish and Christian histories, several additional, a modern scheme of indifference to truth claims and internal integrity of dogma, however fashionable today, is as biased, stinted, and tendentious as its counterpart, speculation. To refuse to submit internal teachings to scientific analysis at all. Early Christianity was set in the world of the Jews. The first Christians were Jews. The only sacred scriptures they knew were the Jewish scriptures, until the so-called Council of Jerusalem. They functioned as a Jewish sect competing with other Jewish sects for the soul of the Jewish nation. When the harvest of Gentile God-fearers from synagogues of the diaspora radically changed the church's ethnic composition, two dramatic results followed on. First, the church became religio illicita under Roman law, and a period of persecutions ensued. Second, the family quarrel between Christian teaching and Pharisaic Judaism set in with measurable consequences to the present day. I am so happy we got done with one chapter. I know I usually don't finish the books I read, but you know what? This one is gonna get finished, and if you guys like this book, come back and we'll continue reading it. I just love it. It has a lot of pictures. It's very educational. A lot of history books don't date way back like this one does, so it's good to know history, and so you can know and understand why the things that are going on right now are related to events that happened in these times. So yes, thank you so much